Irina, could you please unmute yourself first?
Thank you. Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to live conversations on AllatRa TV. These live conversations are being conducted within the framework of Creative Society project, which is launched on AllatRa International Public Movement platform. The goal of the project is to achieve creative society by peaceful means, such kind of society where each person in the world lives happily, lives in comfort in all spheres of life, secure and stable society, where each person is confident in his future. You may find more information on AllatRaUnite.com.
Yeah, thank you, Irina. Greetings to everyone. And as Irina saying, we are conducting the project Creative Society, and currently by conducting interviews, live conversations, social surveys, different roundtables and conference on the topic of Creative Society, we are implementing the first stage to build Creative Society, informational stage. Because the more people will know about Creative Society, the faster we will implement this kind of society. So we invite guests, and then they invite their friends, their relatives, their colleagues to also express their vision. How do they see creative society? So that's why I would like to introduce our guest today. Is Jeremiah Josey. He is the chairman of Metchi Group and founder of the Thorium Network. Welcome to our live conversation, Jeremiah.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Irina. Pleasure to be on this platform. And thank you very much for the initiative. What you guys are doing is fantastic. Spreading the word of creative society. It's exactly what we're doing. We're doing it a bit more focused on the energy side, but we have total alignment. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So could you please a little bit say more about you and what you do?
Sure. Well, where should I start? I'll talk a little bit about Metchi Group first. Metchi Group is a non-profit Swiss-based organisation that helps people realise their potential. If you want to reach your potential on a holistic basis, so both on the material world and I suppose the human potential world, I've always seen there's been a separation between the two. And Metchi Group says, look, we have to get on in the world. We have to have resources. We have to have a place to live, things to eat, things to do. And so Metchi Group helps people do projects. Like I said, being Swiss-based, we're able to reach anywhere in the world. It's a great place to be. And that's been going a little under 10 years now, I think, Metchi Group. And one of our core projects is the Thorium Network. And the Thorium Network is all about democratizing the generation of energy. So it's like the civilian production of energy worldwide using blockchain and focus specifically on thorium molten salts, which is all by itself is an amazing technology. There's been billions of money spent on thorium molten salts back in the 50s and the 60s. And what we're doing is we're standing on the shoulders of giants and bringing that information into the present, putting it into supply chain management software, putting it on the blockchain and getting it out to the world. And a very exciting project because it enables anyone in the world to participate, to get involved and to help us out with that. And when you guys reached out and we communicated about what's your focus and what's our focus, the synergies are very, very nice. And that's something that's just exciting to be able to talk to you guys about that. So I thank you for that.
And thank you for joining. Can you share with us what drives you, what inspires you in what you do?
Thank you. So I suppose from myself, I've always had this sort of balance, or what I can call a balance between the creative side and the logic side. And I've seen that, okay, I might have that balance, or I presume to have that balance. However, I can meet people who are on the extreme of one or the other. And I've found that in my conversations with them, if they haven't got that other hemisphere working, then there's going to be some sort of misconnect, or how they operate in the world. They might be too altruistic, and so they miss sort of the business idea or the business sense of a project or an outcome thereafter. or they might be too business orientated, in which they become too ruthless and they become dehumanized. And so I've always sort of been working on this sort of both sides, if you want to call it that. And I've always been a strong believer in how teams work together to ensure that you actually have a successful outcome, not just for the project, but also for the team. That's a very important. We are humans, we're not robots designed to make some output. We actually have a life that we want to enjoy. And so for me, it's been a very powerful journey in my life to understand that in more detail about myself and about working with others, so that I can build successful ventures, successful projects, successful partnerships, successful relationships. That's the challenge. And I'm a human, so I have all of the same frailties as everyone else. So the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and are all part of that learning and that evolution to get to that that end goal, if there ever is such a word, so that we have that solution. So in my life, the projects that I've created and where I am now is a reflection of that. And I blog about that. I put that on my social media, and it's also reflected in the teams that I build and the projects that I work with. And that's my background, and it's a reflection of that in my activities.
Well, thank you so much for sharing it with us. And also I know that, and you also already said that you have a really big experience in building companies, some teams and conducting projects. And also it would be interesting to know from your experience, in your opinion, what should be that basis of the relationship between people, in order to have this peaceful and harmony atmosphere in team, in society, in community?
Well, it's communication is the first thing. I mean, you have to see the person you're talking with and understand that person you're talking with, so you can actually sort of think from their perspective. So the communication, not just one way. It's like a seeing the world from the other person's point of view. That's the first step. And then there's assimilation or alignment of feeling of intimacy, if you like, love, that connection. That can be a little bit hard unless you're having that, at least an understanding of the other person's point of view. And that's a challenge in our world. We have very demonstrable examples in the world now where it's not working, but there are a lot of people that are striving to bring that together, which is fantastic. That's what we're all about. And so the whole idea of, when I look at it, and that's my background is a sort of a technical business environment. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I bring my skills to bear? I look at the world and I see, well, for me, it's energy, not the energy that we talk about between people, but the physical energy we need to make tea, make ourselves warm, turn lights on behind us, wherever we are. And that energy is the fundamental principle from my perspective for a platform for expanding humanity. And when I say energy, it's low cost, clean, green, and available energy. And that's where I say, what is the best for that? So I've been involved in solar projects before, wind projects, and I can see from a technical point of view, they're good in some areas, but for the bulk of humanity, they have a lot of downsides and a lot of negative sides, actually. So when I talk about thorium molten salt, that's my specific technical focus, and then I come back from that. So how do we get that adoption worldwide, and how do we facilitate that on a global basis? So from my perspective, from a sort of a logical left brain point of view, what is the foundation, the physical foundation that we need, and that's energy. And then coming from that, it's thorium molten salt. And then another step from that is it's actually the availability of that fuel, the availability of that information, which is what the Thorium Network is all about. That's our key focus. So the people who want to join the Thorium Network, they have an altruistic background. They want to help other people. They want to help us move forward as a society, as a whole in the world. They also have a practical point of view as well. They have business experience. They have connections in the industry, whichever that may be, because we are crossing many different industries in what we're doing. So, so creating that structure, that infrastructure, enables people to join wherever they feel they can contribute the most, from the political point of view, from the physics point of view, from mining, from media, public relations. All of these things are relevant in what we're doing. And I suppose from my own experience, I've learned that, okay, there are a good number of people who get the value, such as Anastasia. I know you guys have very strong support of the Anastasia program, and I really admire that as well. However, the majority of people have never heard of Anastasia, and they're sort of like still struggling just to, as one of my colleagues in South Africa says, look, here in South Africa, we're just flat out organising food and electricity. The other things we'll get there when we get there, but right now we need these fundamental basics. So when I look at, okay, how can we get the most amount of change to the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time? It's, okay, let's get energy down first. Let's get that working, and let's get everyone happy that they've got somewhere that can be warm or cool, depending where they are, to sleep at night. They've got something to cook their food. They've got lighting or some way of managing their energy requirements in a nice, clean, concise way. So that's where we're coming from.
Thank you so much for sharing. Your project is really important and really interesting, and it's really inspiring, as you said, that it was first aimed to fulfill basic needs of a human. And we also want to ask you, you have such a huge international experience. We know that you travel a lot, like almost each day you have a new country. And based on your experience, could you tell us what do you think unites all people in the world on inner level?
What unites people? Well, the first thing on the surface is our immediate occupation. Am I a banker? Am I a shoe tailor? Am I shoemaker? Am I tailor? There's a sort of an initial veneer, which is where people connect. But just behind that is family, is synergies or commonalities. It might be sport, it might be taste in food, or something which is connecting, and that's like another layer. But the first and the deepest layer as a human is our existence as a human having an experience on the planet, and that's what I like to get to pretty quickly. When in all my travels and the people I talk with, you can go through the first two levels pretty quickly. You know what you're doing, what your family, how you're placed, but that last one, the opening up, sort of, where am I on this planet? What's happening in my life from the inside? Why am I doing what I'm doing? I like to understand that as quickly as possible, and the quicker I get to that point, the faster the communication and the bond happens with the person I'm talking with. Because everyone loves to talk about the inside stuff, not just the superficial stuff. That's sort of a veneer which comes off very quickly. So, and I find that in all societies, all languages, all cultures, all religions, that it's the inside, the just being a human and sharing food, sharing the moment, which is the greatest joy and gift that people have. And I enjoy that. That's the interaction which I feel makes us human and makes us want to actually do things on the planet.
Exactly, it's definitely totally agree with you. And you know that also every human being would like to live in a happy society where everyone would feel comfortable and prosperously in all spheres of life. So that's why the next question, to you, I'm really looking forward to hear your answer on it. So how do you envision creative society in which every person would live fulfilled life?
This is a good one. Like I've been thinking about this in my conversations with yourself and Irina about, well, what does a creative society mean? We can talk about what it might mean in the future, but what does it mean for us now, and how do we get there? Which is like well, are we there already? One could argue that we're already there. We have such a creative thing going on around us where we create. But I think there's something missing in that creation as a whole, where we're creating unconsciously, or we're creating for a consumer type environment, not for the benefit of ourselves and our children in terms of our the environment we're working with. We're sort of creating for the material benefit, which is part of the story. But the other part, of course, is the spiritual side. Or I mean, that's can be a difficult word to say in some context, because you lose. I was talking before about the left and right hemispheres, the logic and the artistic creative side. If you start talking spirituality, you can lose half your audience, or if not more. And so a creative society is one where you have to bring those together. And it's something that needs to be done holistically, with patience, with kindness, and merging, not denying what's happening now. And that's where we are, and everyone evolves, everyone grows up. So you have to allow that to exist and help people to move on, to evolve. That's the wrong word, because it implies we're not evolved now, but it helped people to see other options, so they can say, oh, look, I can go there as well. And suddenly they realize, well, I don't need to have 14 pairs of suits. I went through that phase a few years ago, so now I just have a couple that I just focus on. So you end up saying, okay, what's my impact on the planet? What am I bringing to the planet now? How can I be creative that brings benefit to myself, my family, my immediate circle of connections, and then my large audience? And then what can I do that sustains that, can live for 1,000 years? A creative society is one which is, you have 1,000-year vision. And I look at it like a converging thinking or divergent thinking. And I'm going to share this sort of this raw thoughts with you, so it might be a little bit jagged as I speak about it. But when you're talking to someone, you can always detect or think through what that thought is, and you think that's actually a thought that's going to end up in a result, something that's, here is the result. That thinking, it might take a year or 10 years or 100 years, but you'll get there. And then you've got another kind of thinking which goes this way, where so the thinking will actually end up not actually resulting in anything, kind of like my conversation now. But these are the things that, when I talk about creating getting to the point of a creative society, we've got to guide our thinking to a convergent point, so that we understand when we are. Look, I can use the energy. I'll go back to energy, which is where I'm comfortable at. If we look at energy production from wind and solar, that's actually a divergent technology, because the more and more we use it, the more resources it needs, the more land it needs, the more everything it needs, because it's so inefficient at energy production. I'll use some technical terms now. The energy return on investment for wind and solar is around 2, which means 1 unit of energy in, only 2 units of energy out. It's incredibly inefficient. And so you have a divergent. The more you use it, the more it consumes, and eventually you fail, because you only have a finite planet. Thorium molten salt energy production, its energy return on investment, its EROI is 2,000 to 1. It's incredibly energy dense. 1 unit in, 2,000 units out. It's like, okay, guys, just sort of like, hang on, I'm going to do this thing which is divergent, or I turn it around and I go into this different way of thinking where I can definitely see I'm going to get to a converging point. And when I talk about the energy side, thorium molten salt is that. So coming back to your question, how do I see a creative society coming together? It's every individual saying, am I engaging in a convergent action? You know, am I going out and drinking all night and partying all the time? Well, eventually you run out of your life. It can be, I've done that myself, it's a lot of fun, but you end up with a great deal of wear and tear on your body, and you're not able to actually create something which is lasting and beneficial for the majority, for yourself, your family, and your immediate circle. So it's starting with yourself. Be with yourself, understand what's going on, and then help others. It's not like being an evangelist to go out there and force yourself upon others, but just by leading by example. So this is the path I've been on. This is where I'm going. And when people ask the question, "What are you doing?" We'll be prepared to help them to understand what you're doing. That's like at a basic level, and sort of like for a creative society. Now, I have another thing I want to add about this thing that people like to use, this term, the governments will do it. I love that. The governments will do it. Those guys over there. So, well, hang on. Those guys that's us. You know, they're the same. We're people. There is no them and us. There is no government. There is no, you know, we're all the same. And I think I spoke with this before, but when there was when the USA invaded Iraq in 2003, leading up to that, there were protests all around the world. And one of the largest was in Melbourne, Australia. And I was there on the day, and I said, wow, I'm here. And as the protest started to walk down the street, I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, I want to understand these people. So I walked out into the middle of the street, in the middle of the protest, and I turned and I faced the people walking to me. And it was very pleasant. You know, people just sort of moved around me. I stood there. My friends were on the side watching me. I was there, okay, I'll just watch these people. And I wanted to feel what was in the minds of these people. There was some, you know, some effigies of Bush, and they weren't very nice, but generally there were people with their kids, there was families walking in the street with a voluble protest. You know, why is the USA invading Iraq? And I was like, okay, these people, okay, they're making the only statement they feel they can make. However, it's going to be ineffective, and it proved to be ineffective. Nothing came out of it. The war carried on, everything, and we're living in the consequences of that back then. And I realized that it just emphasized to me that if you're not understanding how something works, you're going to be at the result or at the effect of it. And understanding government is one of the key principles of our society. And like why I love Switzerland, where we're based, where we operate from, is the Swiss probably have the most democratic process in the world. It's taken them over 850 years to develop that. And they've got a very nice system now. I know I have good friends who are Swiss, probably wouldn't agree with me, but from my travels around the world, I say, hey, you've got a really good thing going. They have referendums almost every week. About 50 votes a year, they get to vote on every law that's getting passed in their country as a whole, which is very different to everywhere else in the world, where you subjugate or you give up your rights to a small group of people every 4 years or every sort of voting cycle. And you lose connection to how the process of our society works. And so we're in a stage in our world where people have forgotten that government is not, you know, not your mother or your father. It's just another group of people who are doing certain things. And if you abdicate your rights to those people, you're giving up your power, but it wasn't taken from you, you're giving it up. And that's a big difference. Because if you don't, it's very easy not to give it up. If it's taken from you, it's a different story. There's a fight, struggle going on. But if you're giving it up, that's coming from you. So if you stop that, if you understand the process and you say, okay, hang on, who am I giving it to? Why am I giving it to you? What are you going to do with it? Do I want to? That's a very different discussion. And I've noticed in my travels that the Eastern world, and that's a big group of people, Russia, Ukraine, the sort of former Soviet states, CIS, Middle East to some extent, have a much more awareness of their sovereign rights as an individual. So, hey, I'm me and I'm getting on with my life. So there's a much more open discussion about what we're talking about now, which is what I love talking about you guys with. Whereas in the West, like the collective West, I'm generalizing incredibly here, but in the West, the people have a much more difficult time of understanding that they are sovereign, and they've just given up their sovereign rights to another person, not some government. It's a sort of a strange thing. And I would say that I realised this in Australia. Originally, I'm from Australia. I left more than 10 years ago now, but I left and I moved to the Middle East, and I have a term that I remind myself is I went to see the other side of the news, because in Australia I was getting the news from one side and my intuition was telling me this is not right, there's something there. Based in the Middle East, great friends in the Middle East from everywhere, and I got the story. This is 2008 when I moved there, so 5 years after Iraq was invaded. So lots of experience and conversations and depth to hear, like I said before, the truth from people who know what's going on, who just experienced it. I just tell me, this is what I experienced, this is what I experienced. And that was and again, great confirmation for me on how we work as a society, how if you give away your sovereign right, it's not a good thing. You've got to take it back. And I mean, I'm sort of answering this question of how do I see the creative society coming forward? And so I can see it as a sovereign, people taking their own identity as a sovereign individual. And then you've got the ability to have a good conversation with someone about that. And then you understand what government is, and there's no such thing as left and right. It's like, well, what is that? It's some sort of game that people are playing, and you bring that back to what am I doing? And I'm really happy that conversations exactly like we're having now can happen, because in the last 6 months of the year, millions of people are being trained in how to do what we're doing now. Have conversations online, share with people all around the world, which is incredible. It's a really amazing time to be alive. And so credit to you guys for getting involved in doing this stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I completely agree with you. People should stop shifting responsibility to someone else, stop hoping on government, but just start acting themselves. And this is actually what is going on now. The thousands of interviews has been conducted within the framework of the Creative Society project, and people all over the world come to the point where they formed and described stages and foundations of building this creative society. And the article was published on the AllatRaUnites.com website about building this kind of society, where 8 foundations was described. And we know that you get familiar with these 8 foundations of building creative society. Could you share your opinion on how we can implement them, and in general, what do you think about them?
Sure. So it's a big question. Well, short question, but a big answer. We've got to handle. Actually, there's a guy called Ken Wilber who I recommend checking out. He's got a really nice way of compressing this thought together. It's a little bit akin to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the pyramid of basic needs, shelter, food, and going up to self-actualization. It's a little bit like that, and that we have to tackle many different angles at the same time to reach the creative society's goals, because you can't just like I was using the example of my colleagues in South Africa, you can't just lump them with, you know, love everyone and get on, and because they're saying we need food, we need to actually have heating and cooling or whatever it is that they're after. So you've got to create this holistic approach which bridges the logical mind, the artistic mind in our own mind, in our own brains, but also in the society as well, where you've got entire groups of logically minded people, like the guys on Wall Street as a great example, or in the UK, the financial market is incredibly logically driven, and the amount of humanistic endeavors in there is small, but it is growing. So that, like I was talking about, converging and divergent thought, there is that converging thought that money that is invested on the planet to do things must be done in a very clear, concise and encompassing way. That's where we have to go, and that's going to bring everything together much faster than sort of pushing people in a direction or dragging them away from something that they're comfortable with now. So it's a multifaceted approach that has to be done on many different planes at many different levels, and it's not just one solution, or in my belief, not just one solution that fits all. Although I do believe that if everyone was meditating, that's a really great step to getting to the next step. My own journey has included things like ayahuasca, which I thoroughly recommend as well. If you want to really see who you are and where you come from and where we can go, then getting to look on the inside through that process is invaluable, which is also starting to open up now. I'm talking about the use of psychedelic substances or plant-based substances, which help you see another version of yourself, so you can integrate that. That's a very valuable process as well. So things like Mind Valley, which is happening in the West, very recommended process to get the Western mind coming over to the sort of the Eastern way of thinking. Anesthesia in the East is already there, already exists. So it's like, sort of integrating that. It's much easier in the West to have, it's much easier in the East to have the conversations we're having now than it is in the West. I just have experienced that myself.
Maybe. And what do you think about, as we discussed already, the 8 Foundation of Creative Society?
They're fantastic. I'm going to go through them now.
Self-governing, because this is exactly what we've discussed now, that people should stop shifting responsibility and start taking actions. So maybe you would like to comment on it, and maybe we can read it out loud. The 8 Foundation of Creative Society.
Excellent. So I'm just opening the list now. I've read them a few times. I just want to pick one that I can focus on. All of them are fantastic. They touch on who we are as humans. It's kind of like the Constitution of the United States of America, but this is more humanistic. It's focusing on a much broader picture. I'm going to focus on the last.
Compared to Constitution, it's actually focused on basic human needs, those needs which has each human being all over the world, regardless of country.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. That's excellent. There's the two at the end, the justice and equality, number 7, and number 8, self-governing society. I'm going to talk about those in respect to, specifically to technology. I'm an ultimate optimist. There's a little bit where I'm pessimistic about, and that's human nature. I'm not pessimistic, I'm sort of a realist. That human nature on a whole is driven by a lot of base needs. And there's a saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think that's going to be something that's applicable to society for many generations to come. But technology is here to save us. What do I mean by that? So with 7 and 8, justice and equality, number 7, of the foundations of a creative society, and number 8, self-governing society, these are going to be really, really affected and helped with technology, and in particular blockchain. Now, I don't know how much of the audience or how much of you understand about blockchain, but in exactly the same way that the internet, which has been around for over 20 years now, the internet has enabled communication around the world with everyone, individuals, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one. That's what the internet is doing now. The blockchain brings integrity to that communication. And when I mean integrity to the data exchange, be it the communication, actual voice or text or transaction, or whatever it may be. So blockchain, just like the word internet, and it means so many things, internet all by itself, blockchain is another one of the technologies which is going to be fantastic for the world as we go forward. And justice and equality and self-governing society are going to be able to build upon blockchain technology to give us systems which are immutable, transparent, and cannot be played with. And that's something which helps, it's kind of like naughty children, I suppose. It helps us not to be naughty, but to be nice, because it trains us. When the transaction has gone through, it can't be reversed. When the conversation has been done, it can't be reversed. And so justice and equality, we're talking about the sharing of resources worldwide. Well, the Thorium Network, we're all about putting thorium on a blockchain. And thorium is, I used the number before, it's the energy density of energy from thorium molten salt is 2,000 to 1. It's an incredible number. We're putting it on a blockchain. And that's like, hang on, that means that everyone can get access to it. Everyone can get access to it in accordance to the rules of society as they are today, which is still quite stringent. We're following those rules, and we incorporate those rules into our blockchain so that we're not breaking any rules by doing it. We're actually enhancing the rules, but we're providing it to everyone using blockchain. Self-governing societies, as all self-governing societies as they exist today, in the West, there's in many parts of the world except Switzerland, as I said before, we've delegated or relegated our responsibility, our sovereign right to individuals, and we play with that every voting cycle, every 4 years, except in Switzerland, where there's a vote almost every week on the law. What will our law be this week? What will we change? So it's a continual process. And I love the Swiss system. The Swiss amazing just in the way that everything works by itself. They don't need blockchain. They already are. They have that system working already. But blockchain used in voting, in decision making, in law management, in management of taxes, collection of taxes, spending of taxes, blockchain is perfect for that. And it's really going to be a game changer in the way that societies, in the way that we as societies manage our government. Now, the word government is, and I like to use not government, but administration. Administrating the things that we don't want to do ourselves. There's no profit in it, it's boring, whatever reason. That's what administration, that's what government really is all about. It's not about being told what to do or being controlled. It's sort of like managing the foundation of our society so we can get on and enjoy ourselves, have a coffee, go and watch a game, whatever it is that we want, that we enjoy to do. That's what administration should be providing for us. And a blockchain management of that system is going to be incredible. There's a lot of resistance to that because there's a lot of paradigms that have to be shifted. A lot of businesses will be upset by that as well. But that's the nature of humanity. That's sort of how we've always been. There's always been people with vested interests that they want to maintain that. However, step by step, conversation by conversation, like this conversation now, we're getting there. We're getting there. I was very pleased to see a few years ago now, I think it was 2016, Russia adopted a democratic principle that's been in Switzerland for many, many years. In Switzerland, if you wanted to change the law, just collect 50,000 votes. And then the parliament has to debate that. And not debate, are we going to adopt this law? It's to debate, it's to examine the merits of putting it into the public vote, which I talked about every week. Almost every week there's a vote in Switzerland. Russia has adopted the same principle on 100,000 votes. Population of Switzerland is 8.5 million people, and you've got to get 50,000 votes, 50,000 signatures, sorry, it's a petition process, 50,000 signatures to get something moving in Switzerland. So it's a large percentage of the Swiss population. In Russia, it's only 100,000 votes. Okay, it's twice as Switzerland, but Russia has 140 million people. So it's a much, much smaller portion of the population of Russia to actually get a law debated in the Russian system. Now, look, I'm saying something that might be contentious to a lot of people, but it's happened. It's there, it's written down. Maybe the mechanism isn't working smoothly yet, but it's started. And when you've started, you're on your way. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree, the second best time to plant a tree is today. You don't put it off to tomorrow. I love that saying. I think it's a Confucius saying, several thousand-year-old, but it applies equally today as it did many thousands of years ago.
Yeah, you said it rightly that we have to do something today. So you see, that because we built our future, like particularly at this time, at this moment. So
Yes.
That's why, like, how do you think, what can every person do so in the future we will live in creative society to do today?
Yeah. Well, it's be optimistic. There's a very pessimistic, the media, don't watch TV, don't watch TV. You can become quite pessimistic if you get dragged into that cycle. So don't watch TV. Become optimistic. Breathe. Take big breaths. Breathing. Get into your body. It's really a in your skin experience where you feel alive. You feel like you can contribute. You have to get out of that space where you feel like you're inactive or you can't contribute. If you can't do that, try and be neutral. Just go, okay, I'm going to try and be neutral. The world can change in a positive way. Learn about blockchain. There's so much technology, so many universities giving free courses on how to study, how to be involved in blockchain. I want a call this afternoon with a guy from Syria who left Syria 5 years ago. He was as a refugee when what happened there happened. He found himself in Netherlands. He trained himself in blockchain, did some online courses, and now he's an expert in blockchain. So he's a speaker on TEDx as well. So I'm going to have a great conversation with him this afternoon. That's fantastic. So it's get out of the pessimistic state. There's so much good stuff going on. Reach out to people, find the conversations which inspire you, join groups of people which have inspiring, uplifting statements such as where you guys are, and just get involved, and you'll find everything gets better. Everything gets better. The technology is here. There's people to reach out to do it, and it's just fantastic. That's what I recommend.
Definitely. And that actually, as you mentioned about that, do not shift our responsibility to the government and then, complaining about this every time. But just, like this, now we have a really opportunity. We have really technology, as you said, and now everyone could, like voiced what they really would see, how it will look, our future society. And, to help government to build a structure, actually, that what can we do? It's not like took so many time. Actually, so that's why it's like up to every person. It's really in our hands, and we really should realize that now it's like globalization of our time, and we should really feel like we are a resident of a planet Earth. So as you like said, a little conclusion at what you said, that we have just to open our minds and to really think globally on what we have now and think as a unit of a really big society, one family humanity, really
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
And you know that this is like a tradition of our program that we are using the theory of 6 handshakes, which is said that all people in the world are connecting through 6 or in less social connection. And actually, technology let us prove that even less social connection, we are really close to each other than we realized. So that's why I would like to ask you to nominate one person, it could be your friend or colleague, to invite for our next program, for our next conversation, and to hear his or her vision of creative society, and also to hear interesting idea, because every person is so individual, and every time is so interesting to hear different perspective of you. So that's why it's very, very important to hear everyone. So could you please name one or two?
Yes, I will. I have several I can think of. Do you want me to name them now, or shall I reach out to them and connect you with?
It's up to you.
All right, let me reach out to them, and I'll have a think about the conversation, and I'll definitely send you some suggestions from my network.
We would be happy to hear from them, and thank you so much for this conversation, because you have such a huge experience in the professional sphere and social sphere, and just your personal experience, and it can contribute to our common goal so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you today, and to be looking forward to further collaboration. And we would like to remind our viewers that anyone can join Creative Society project. For this, you can visit AllatRaunites.com website and click the join button. When you can fill your contact information there, you can leave it there, and we will contact you. And also, if you would like to participate in this live broadcast, please send us an email at info@allatra.com. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us today, and we will see you in our next live broadcast.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.